We made this.
Just take a look at my life now. Take a look at my dreams. Look up to the sky now. It's not what it seems.
Hello everyone and welcome to Pick Up a Podcast, the podcast about podcasters and podcasting. In this week's episode we are venturing back into the music world. It's been a common theme in this series so far, and this week we have a guest in the name of Ian from Free with this month's issue. Hello Ian, how are you doing, mate?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Just to give you forewarning, I am at work, so I'm hoping no fire alarms or anything like that go off. I've just put a film on, let them get on with it, and I'm going to spend a bit of time talking to you on my break. So that's the plan. So it's all
right. Cool. Very professional.
Oh yeah, and I've made a vital error. I've got like a mobile podcasting way of doing it. I've got like my own external Zoom and microphone and pop filter and stuff, and I've forgotten the pop filter. So hopefully it's not going to be too bad, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, it might be sketchy from my end as well, because I got a new microphone for Christmas, and it's allegedly got a built-in pop shield.
All right.
We shall see.
Yeah, it's certainly worth having a look. So, before we get into yourself, can you just give us a brief overview of what Free with this month's issue is, and who you podcast with, and kind of just where you're going with it and all that type of thing, and what you've done so far?
Okay, yes. So, Free with this month's issue is like basically a companion podcast to We Dig Music, which is the one me and Colin have been doing for a good couple of years now. Colin wanted to do more talking about music, because that's basically all me and Colin ever do when we hang out.
Yeah.
And the theme that came to his mind was free magazine CDs. And I have a lot of those, as does he. So we were like, oh yeah, let's do that. But let's get guests. Right. Because it's like a stable lineup in We Dig Music. You know, it's like always me, Colin and Tracy. And that's fun because we know each other and we know how to react and how to play off each other, but also really good fun to throw someone else into the mix.
Yeah, so you've got like to add a bit of fluidity and kind of, you know, a different voice every week and stuff, just to give it a bit of freshen up, really. Basically,
yes. And the intention is, obviously we've got a lot of friends who also are really into music. We've got a really long list of people to get through, but from my perspective, what I want to do, just to build interest in our podcast as a general, and just because I like doing it, is just to talk to some more borderline or actually famous people.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So,
you know, so we chat to people about stuff that they might not usually get interviewed about.
Right.
You know, like, or talk to people like radio DJs who don't ever get interviewed, really.
Right. Okay. So what kind of people are you looking into? Is it more like producers, or are you actually looking for artists or people within the band themselves? And what sort of people have you kind of approached so far?
Pretty much anyone. The people we've got Johnny Doom from Kerrang lined up to do one eventually. I play in a band called Weird Stuff, and we've got definitely our singer, if not the rest of the band, coming on to do stuff as well. We just interviewed. It's just going to be released. When we're recording this, we just interviewed him. Yeah. When this goes out, we've just released it. A guy called Alex Claridge, who is the chef from a restaurant called The Wilderness in Birmingham. He's a very rock and roll chef and quite up and coming. I think he's going to be on telly in a couple of different guises as well. So,
right, okay, that'll be good to look out for. So that'll be out as you just mentioned there, around about the same time or not long before this one's come out. So it'll be maybe 3 or 4 weeks old. So
yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic episode as well, because I've met the guy a couple of times. We bonded over like random chats about music while I've been eating in his restaurant, and I was like, dude, do you just want to come on the podcast and talk about music instead of food? And he's like, yes, that sounds amazing.
Well, you could, I know this might not be your cup of tea, but at my work we've had is it Alex Jones from Blur?
Oh yeah,
he's now into cheese.
I've heard this. Yes.
And we had a cheese festival here at work, and he was here for that. So that was an interesting thing when you're walking through and went, that's the guitar player from Blur. What's going on here? So that's good fun. But speaking of music itself, now at the moment, as far as I'm aware, we're not talking Smash Hits magazine here, are we?
You know what? We do everything. Like, mostly it's been, like Kerrang and Metal Hammer and Rock Sound CDs, but we have done an NME one.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we actually have got someone threatening to come on and do a Smash Hits, it's all well and good. It's cool. Like, the way we do it is Colin he'll try and search out the magazine itself, because apparently there's a big trade in magazines on eBay.
All right. Okay.
Who knew, right?
Yeah.
And he'll do research. He'll come in with his little notepad and he's like, when this CD was released, this was the #1 single. These were the albums that were out. And, and I'll just sit there and go, that track is shit. I hate that song. Like, I'll go in with literally no preparation at all and just react to things.
Yeah.
And that's the vibe we're going for. Colin knows what he's talking about. I have opinions.
Yeah. I remember when I spoke to Colin last year about that, and I think the Oasis one had just come out, which is your favorite band, of course.
I may have dropped the C-bomb.
Yeah, I think you may have done
15 to 20 times. I think. Yeah, yeah. I was a little bit passionate about my dislike, shall we say?
Well, that's okay. And isn't it Tracy was the KT Tunstall, if I remember right?
Yes. The what's that word? It was a really good word. Turncoat.
Yes,
that was it.
Fantastic. So, how does your podcast? Well, obviously, I've listened to a few of them, but how does your podcast come together with the guest? Then, are you inviting them to record with you, and it's not over Skype or anything like that at all? It's actually
they've all been in person so far.
Right.
I mean, Colin has the facility to record via Skype, so we may well do that. Yeah. That's definitely going to allow us to reach out to more people.
Yeah.
But I think really both me and Colin prefer doing it in person because, you can read people's faces. And on a personal note, if I'm really laying into something and the guest is pulling a face, I know whether to ease off or just, dig in even further.
Yeah. I do know that there's, depending on certain podcasters that I've podcasted with over I've been doing this around just over 2 years, maybe slightly more now, that I've podcasted with quite a few people. I've not done one in person yet, which is something that I'd like to do at some point, but it's always been over Skype. But the majority of people are fine with like what we're doing. We're just recording it over Skype. But I tell a lie. I actually do tell a lie there. That is a complete falsehood. We went to Chicago for the X-Fest, the X-Files exhibition, X-Files festival, and there was a lot of the X-casters there, and we did a daily kind of rundown of the events. So that's a complete lie what I've just said there.
It's easy to forget these things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I've had other podcasters who like to video call, which cause all kinds of issues with my horrible, shitty broadband. But
oh god, yeah! If you're in a bad connection, that's going to be hellish.
So I've done that a couple of times, and one was with an actor as well, which was a bit kind of like, oh god, is he moving? Is he alive?
Yeah,
sort of thing, which was fantastic. So you also as well, your podcast is very similar to We Dig This, isn't it? It's kind of the same kind of format, apart from the guests as such. You do have the embedding of the music of the CD and things like that.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Colin spends a lot of time going back through We Dig Music and listening to what we're saying and then playing the track that we're talking about at each given time. And I think this is a lot easier to edit because, we talk about the track, we run through it track by track. So, he just slots them in. He's already MP3'd the CD by the time we get to that point. So I feel like from his perspective, it's an editing, I was going to say dream, but like... Yeah, Colin's a bit easy of a stressor, so it's
which is why I found it amazing that he was when recording last time that he was looking to find a piece of software to record with me, and we had to delay it for a week because it didn't quite work. And I know we had a great time talking about that. So So that was fun.
Well, no, so he stresses, but he's not organised, and I feel like that. It just spirals at that point.
So over the episodes that you've done so far, so there's been, I think it's since up to this recording, you've got around 11, 12 episodes.
Yeah, I think so.
How often do you release them, and what has been your favourite moment so far in the recordings that you've done?
We release them, I think, every month. So so you've got time to fill in, so you can listen to a We Dig Music, then you can listen to Free With This Month's. So stagger them, because we used to do We Dig Music every fortnight, and then it all got a bit much, so we dialed it back a little bit. Favorite moments, obviously the Alex Claridge one was a favorite because he was our biggest he's our biggest interview up until that point, and that was a lot of fun. One of the first ones we did was with our friend Tom, and that was a lot of fun as well, because we all kind of piled in on the same tracks, but then there were some tracks that we didn't entirely agree on, and we just had a lot of fun ripping each other on that as well. So
and was that the David Bowie one?
Yeah, it was
Bowie, depending on
Optimus Bowie
Optimus Bowie. That's the one. Yeah, So with regards to that, then, I mean, obviously the nature of the beast is that you're getting all these tracks that a lot of them you might not have heard before, and the research that goes into it, into trying to find the magazine online and things like that. But what do you think generally with those kind of CDs that were on the front of these magazines, that the choices that they made and some of the tracks that they chose? I mean, there'll be differences, like that David Bowie one, it had people doing stuff live and things. I mean, generally, what do you think of the way that they're put together, just in general terms?
So I find it quite intriguing. Like the one we did with Alex Claridge was the Kerrang history of punk, and it was really scattered. Like, if I were to do that, I would have kind of gone, start off with the classic punk and then move on and move on and move on through time, and dig into the various subgenres and stuff. But it was not like that. It was like, here's some classic punk, here's some ska punk, here's some hardcore, here's some grindcore. And it was just like, we were all just like, what the fuck were they thinking at this point? Like, or were they even? Did they just grab a list and just throw it into a CD burner at random? And the episode we did with Jade was the first Rock Sound CD. There was a track from the first Slipknot album, and it was the weird track.
Right.
Called,
okay.
And like, why would you want this? Why would anyone, why would the record company give that to the magazine? Why would the magazine go, yeah, that's sick, let's put this on?
Yeah, I mean, you think it'd be advertising the album and get people out to buy it, wouldn't you? So to put something like that on would be really strange.
It's fascinating, like revisiting them, because as a kid, because most of them are from when we were like early to late teens, maybe early 20s, and you just be like, oh, amazing, this track, oh yeah, this is awesome, and now you're like, what the fuck were they thinking? Why is this here? This does not represent the band at all. Like, the amount of times you'd hear a track and go, I really like that, I'm going to buy the album, and then you're like, I still only like that track that I got for free.
Right, yeah.
Why did they do this? Why wouldn't you pick a track that was representative? It is fascinating to go back and look at it and question the decisions. And we fairly regularly get into chats about why these decisions were made and come up with theories and things like that. Colin often has incredibly well-researched things, and I have really, really flippant opinions about it.
And I think that's the reason why it works. So, I mean, it's interesting, this one, though, because on some of the episodes that I've listened to, I haven't listened to all 11. I think I've maybe listened to about 5 or 6 of them in total over the time that they've been out. I've often just put them on when I'm wanting a bit of yourself and Colin. But what's really interesting, I think I mentioned this to Colin, is the dynamic between you two, as you say, the flippancy of yourself, or the reactions that we get, and that really works from a chemistry point of view. But the way that kind of, like, as you say, that these CDs were put together at the time, and the way that Colin kind of tries to delve into the articles that are on the magazine and stuff. I mean, that must be pretty hard to find that kind of those magazines either online or, as you say, on eBay and stuff. Does he have a kind of a real struggle to find much on some of these magazines?
From what I gather, no. Like, if he's got an adequate amount of time to prepare, he does all right. So yeah, they seem to crop up on eBay with weird frequency. I wonder if there's just some dude who's like put his entire collection on and has had the auctions just rolling over and over and over and over for 20 odd years or something. And he's like, fuck, someone finally wants to buy one.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Or whether there's just, like 1,000 other podcasts doing this exact same thing. And there's just like the magazines are just traveling between them and none of us have found out about each other's podcasts. I don't know.
It is really interesting. I mean, it could be because obviously, raiding people's lofts and attics and wherever that, you've got all these albums stored away. I mean, I've still probably got, I would say I wasn't a big magazine collector during my youth, really. I used to generally just buy albums. But I definitely will have a few Q album compilations. There's definitely one that I'm thinking of, which I know will probably make you go, oh, it's definitely got a Richard Ashcroft song in there.
I don't mind Richard Ashcroft. He's all right.
Well, that's all right then. That's fine. And I think there was potentially Moby. There was a few other bits, typical Q kind of level. But I remember listening to that album quite a lot. I might still have that put away in a box somewhere. But as to the magazine would be long gone. But,
whereas if you came to us and went, I want to do this CD, Colin would find that fucking magazine.
Yeah, he would. Yeah. I might have to do that at some point.
You should. You absolutely should. Yeah. I think music taste wise, I get a bit of people make assumptions. Definitely all of the hashtag Team Tracy people on Twitter. All right. It's like, oh, Ian just listens to metal, which is absolute fucking nonsense.
Okay, then let's take that one step further. Then, so what sort of artists that you would surprise people, to say the least? I was going to ask that anyway, but what sort of artists would people feel that surprised that you actually like? Do you think?
I feel like much of it gets discussed on We Dig Music, but if you're just coming at this from a Free With This Month's issue kind of perspective, then I've spent the entire day today listening to Russian hip hop.
Oh, right, okay.
Because I'm putting together a playlist for my wife because she likes listening to stuff like that when she's proofreading because she can't understand any of the words. Right. So it's not distracting. Also because I really dig it. So, but I listen to loads of ambient stuff, like the Aha episode of We Dig Music. I was the one who was being like, oh my God, we need to do Aha. I fucking love Aha.
Right, yeah.
In my early 20s, I wanted to listen to the most extreme things, like in either direction. So I'd be like, this song is half an hour long and it's got 2 notes in it. It's Stars of the Lid, beautifully ambient. I need to listen to this. Or this song is 30 seconds long and it's like You Suffer, but heavier. And or this is a Mertz. I mean, I don't know whether you're familiar with Merzbow, but he basically just records and modulates feedback and stretches it out over like half an hour.
Oh, right, okay.
I was just like, right, I must push the limits of music. I must find where the limits are, and just went crazy.
There is also, I can't remember the artist, but there's a track called Silence.
Oh, someone Glass, isn't it? I think
so, and it is literally just silence.
Yeah. I once interviewed a dude from a band who had recently covered that.
Right. Okay.
I was like, so that was easy, right? And he's like, no, because you have to stand on stage for precisely that amount of time and not look bored.
That would have been great to see that.
Yeah, he's like the levels of intensity involved in performing silence for 4+ minutes is actually surprisingly high. I get that. I've seen people stand on stage for like a minute's silence in some kind of memorial thing, and it's like, fuck, is this just a minute?
Yeah.
This feels like a day.
We get that on sort of Remembrance Day, and when you're in a retail, kind of like a tourism-based company, which is what I'm based in, that you have these 2-minute silences, you make the announcement, and you often get like people absolutely oblivious to what's happening. You know, even though you can clearly see there's like 50 people standing in silence and they're just walking through going, you know, chatting to the cousin going, nah, 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 nah. And you're going, shut the fuck up, come on, you know, kind of thing. And you're like pointing at them and stuff and they're just not getting it. But then on the flip side, as you say, like 2 minutes is a long, long time to stand in silence. So yeah, so to perform silence would be a feat in itself, really. So let's talk about your music in general, your musicality, and what you do outside of the podcasting world. I believe that you're actually quite into music and play yourself. Is that right?
Yeah. So like for years, well, I mean, me and Colin have been gigging together, like either together in a band or bands in the same, like the old Tamworth scene for years and years, like longer than I care to even think. I think I gave Colin his second ever gig when I was promoting a charity gig.
Right.
So, I've mostly been in metal bands or like weird, harsh noise, industrial things. I think the longest I was in a band was my band called Structures, which is like a proggy post-rock thing. We did a couple of albums. I'd like to do more, but everyone has families and, you know, it gets a little bit difficult. I'm currently playing in, I think, the world's only Paleolithic black metal band called Weird Stuff. That's good fun.
Right. Okay. And do you do much recording then for that in studios and things like that then? Or?
We've done zero recording for Weird Stuff, much to my frustration, because I would love to get into the studio and try and get those tracks down. Structures we've got 2 albums done. I've just set myself up, because we've just moved house, and I've set up my little home studio, so I'm ready to start creating stuff and seeing what I can come up with.
Yeah. And what is it? What is it that you actually play, or do you play a multitude of instruments?
So up until Weird Stuff, I was like a guitarist and vocalist, sometimes bassist. In Weird Stuff, I have a collection of odd instruments that make weird noises and some effects pedals and stuff like that, because I just generate textural noise in the background. Yeah, musical equivalent of smoking a shitload of weed, basically. So that's where I'm coming from musically if I'm left to my own devices. Right.
Okay. Well, it's been a long time. I play in a function band, which I've probably mentioned quite a few times on this podcast. But and I've been doing that since 1998, 1999. So it's been a hell of a lot of time. I mean, in 2004, I joined my own. Well, we created a 3-piece band which had various kind of. It was kind of Franz Ferdinandi with a bit of blues rock in there, and there was a few little Sonicscape bits and bobs that we were attempting. You know, there was a lot of phase on my bass at one point, and various things, and I did that for around probably a couple of years. We were meant to play King Tut's in Glasgow, but that was
a classic venue.
Yeah, well, we were lined up to do that, but we didn't actually do that in the end. But it was kind of one of those things where life gets in the way. It was like one person was wanting to say, let's go and push it. And the other two going, well, we've got mortgages now.
Yeah. So it's an absolute motherfucker. There's so many bands nowadays who are like, they'll be making waves and then they're like, we've got to stop because we just can't afford to do this.
Yeah. And it was, and for me, it was one of those things where it was great when we were doing it. You know, we did a little bit of a mini tour just around our local area, and as I say, the drummer was really into pushing it, and it was like, yeah, I'm really enjoying this. But when it got to that point and it was like it was getting serious, it became like, oh, like this needs to be a bit serious now. It was like, okay. As much as I would love to do that, if you came to me 5 years earlier, I would have gone, yeah, without a doubt, but. You know, at 24, 25-year-old, it was kind of like, nah, I can't do this now.
That's it. Things come on at like different and awkward times, don't they? Yeah,
they do. Yeah,
I know that one.
Yeah. So, So with regards to all that kind of music, I mean, obviously you've done plenty of gigs and things like that. Has there been any stories that you could able to tell that won't get you into any trouble? Put it that way.
Jesus, so many stories, so many. I think my favourite moment with Structures is our bass player Dickie. He likes a drink, I mean, I don't know whether he likes to drink anymore because I've not seen him for a bit. He got married and kind of vanished off the face of the earth, but we can assume that he still would be partial. Anyway, we supported a band called And So I Watch You From Afar, which was one of our, like, the bigger gigs that we got. And he got absolutely shit-faced after we played and literally kicked the door open to their dressing room, ran in, grabbed a pack of plastic champagne flutes, screamed victory, and ran out again.
Fantastic.
And I was just stood there next to the door because I didn't know what was going on. And the drummer from the band just walked out, looked at me, and was like, What? And I was like, I don't know. I was just like, we were both just looking at each other like, what the fuck just happened and why? Why did it happen?
Oh, amazing! That's brilliant. I mean, we've another thing with our band as well is it's very much a social thing. And don't get me wrong, it's a professional band, and it's a lot more professional than it was when it back in 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
But we used to do holiday camp reps coming back together after the season. And
right.
Some of those were really entertaining. They were really entertaining. There's been moments where the police have been called. There's been at one point I completely lost everyone and found myself wandering around the streets of the town trying to find my way back.
Oh dear, that's never good.
Yeah, and there was one year where both myself and my friend who plays guitar with us, where we were at a friend's in just outside of Leeds. And it was more like a party. It was a party for our guitar player. His sister lives down there. Again, same sort of thing. We kind of lost our way. We couldn't find anything. And we got to, I'd say, it was about 4 a.m. Both he and I were kind of walking around, didn't know where we were, walking around all these housing estates, trying to find our way back home. Couldn't find his brother's house whatsoever. And there was this park bench, and the park bench was just on the corner of this one road. And my friend was like, "I'll give up. I'm lying. This is where I'm going to stay now. I'm staying here. And,
that happens.
Yeah, but what was really funny about it was as he was lying down, I looked over in the corner of my eye. I saw like a van, and it was his brother's van. I went, "We're here!" It was one of the funniest things, just the way it was like how we were thinking we were completely and utterly lost. And I just saw the van. I went, "That's his boy's van. We're here. And I'm trying to shake him up. You know, he's almost instantly falling asleep, shaking him, going, "We've got to get in there." And then finally on that piece, we walked into the house and we were sleeping on the couch and he was sleeping on the armchair.
Yeah.
And I'm lying on the couch and we were talking, nonsense because we'd had quite a lot to drink. And
for sure.
He fell asleep on an armchair. But the rest of the night, and bear in mind, there was only like maybe 5 or 6 hours sleep, so we didn't get that much. It was broken. But the rest of the night, he was like just tossing and turning, trying to get comfortable. And he just kept, I was like, "Dave, stop it." And and then in the morning when he got up and went to breakfast, the guitar player came down, got in the armchair and pulled it as a recliner.
Oh my God.
So it'd been like sort of like uncomfortable for like 6 hours. And it was one of those moments, when you have to be there, where I just saw my guitar player just pull his recliner. I screamed out with laughter, just thinking, "Oh God, this is amazing." So that's the great thing about being in bands, isn't it, really?
I love when you end up, doing a gig with a touring band and you're all on the same page. And like, I remember sitting there with a bunch of guys, they were called the Humble Hoax, who we were friends with, and the bass player had just passed out and the guitar player was just chatting away to us with a marker pen in his hand, just colouring in the bass player's face as he lay asleep next to him. And none of us told him the next day.
Oh, right.
At all. Like, he'd got like 50% coloured in blackface.
And he didn't think to look in the mirror in the morning or anything like that. Just literally,
he was sleeping in someone's living room. He just got up, got in the van, went off.
Fantastic, brilliant.
Absolutely magnificent.
Okay, so going back to your podcast just before we finish, and again, I'd like to thank you for coming on. But what are you looking forward to with the podcast moving forward in the episodes to come, and what plans have you got for the future for it, and just basically anything you've got up and coming, really?
I think I'm just I'm going to try and leverage whatever contacts I've got, because I used to do online radio and local radio and stuff like that. So I'm in contact with a lot of pluggers and things. So what I'd like to do is approach them and go, this is a podcast that we do. Do you think any of your guys would be interested in being on it? We'll let them talk about their new album or whatever at the end of the podcast. And, I think the more relatively well-known people we get on, the more likely we are to do that. And then we can hopefully snowball it into something where we get to talk to people that I know Colin has got a couple of people that he's like, this would be my ideal. I would love to talk to this person. If we could get them on, it would be the best.
Yeah.
So I think we will keep pushing each other to get better and better guests on and, snowball it into something amazing. But obviously still keep having our friends on as well, because hanging out with friends talking about music is what it's all about, really. Yeah,
I can imagine. Yeah, it's always a good thing to do. And as I say, it comes across in your podcast with the way that it feels natural, and I can imagine, having that conversation happening, whether or not it's been recorded or not, really, which is great to see.
That's it. I mean, we've got it's a 20-year friendship, or 20 plus years, so it's easy to hang out with Colin and be natural and be comfortable with each other, and then comfortable enough to allow someone else to come in and hang out with us and talk shit as well. So it's a lovely, sounds really lame, doesn't it? But it's just a lovely atmosphere, and it's a lot of fun to do. Yeah,
absolutely. And I like to do podcasting to get out there and speak to new people and to get their ideas and to broaden out the horizon. And it's always good to speak to people like yourselves and people involved in like movie podcasts, but music is the one that I particularly I do really enjoy, and it's nice to be able to do this, because obviously a lot of the ones I generally am on are more TV based or film based. So having a bit more of a musical aspect to pick up a podcast is great, and that's probably why that this season's been a bit more heavier from a music point of view. So it's been great to speak to you. So where can people find your podcast and yourself online? Where's the best place to find you?
Okay, so we are on wedigpodcast.com is the website, so that you can find all the episodes of We Dig Music and Free With This Month's issue on there. And I think we've got some of like Tracy's music reviews and stuff that she's written as well on there. So there's that. You can come. Obviously, we're on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you can put a podcast. Me personally, at Killminus on Twitter and also Instagram. I take lots of pictures of abandoned buildings and Chernobyl and stuff like that. So, if that sounds interesting to you, check out my Instagram.
Give Colin my regards.
Will do.
And otherwise, you can find me on Twitter. That's at rmuldrake, RMULDRAKE. You can, of course, find us on at Pick Up a Podcast as well as I mentioned over the last few weeks, that we've got the Millennium podcast that I'm doing, which is at the time is Now Pod. And you'll find me on the network of We Made This, which is the network which hosts Pick Up a Podcast. So find out any information on there with all the various different podcasts on there. But until next time, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you very much, Ian. And we'll listen out for you in the future. And until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Previously on the We Made This network. The Time Is Now, a Millennium podcast.
And sometimes those choices are still grounded in how we play our parts with people in society, which can be doing really bad and horrible acts, and how we contend with those. And our choices can, because even if you take that notion of Lucy Butler and that pure evil out of Millennium, like you say, there's so much low evil that it would still play out very similar or even identically, because things like the Millennium Group's ideological conflicts, its reasoning behind this sort of purification through fire, the whole the serial killers, the fascination the Polaroid man has in Frank, it is all rooted within sociological and what I would call the stink of humanity.
The Xcast, an X-Files podcast.
The one single reason why we should not just forget this episode file it away, flush it down the toilet, whatever, is because of this one important thing to the entire concept of the X-Files. This is the woman that named the X-Files, and I love it because it's sort of an afterthought, or even not necessarily a mistake, but it's just a happenstance. I love it because you got too full, so it had to overflow into X. Wonderful. So fun, such a mundane little thing for such an amazing thing as the X-Files.
We dig music.
I still remember the exact first time that I knowingly heard Nick Cave, and it was in an X-Files episode. There's an episode called Ascension, which I think is the episode where Scully gets abducted by aliens, which is...
Isn't that all of them?
2. No, it fucking isn't. It was a big thing. It was
because she was the cynic. She didn't believe in aliens.
Of course.
And she was abducted by aliens, and then it was like, oh, shit, they must be real. It's not a conspiracy.
They're out there.
And all that, but Red Right Hand was...
I think Red Right Hand is the most...
It's got to be the gateway for it.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.
Pick Up a Podcast is created and hosted by Kurt North and is part of the We Made This podcast network. It can be found on Twitter at Pick Up a Podcast. Music for the show is created by David Kennedy and produced by David Kennedy, Kurt North and Ian Curtin. Check out the We Made This podcast network on Twitter at We Made This Pod and on Facebook by searching We Made This. There is also a website. Check that out at www.wemadethispod.com. Thanks for listening.